Every single one of us wants to succeed. We all dream of becoming something greater, achieving more, doing more, living more. But here's the truth. Big dreams are not built in a day. They're built one decision, one step, 1% at a time. Today I want to challenge you with a simple idea. Improve yourself by just 1% every day. Now I know what you're thinking. 1%? That sounds like nothing. But let me tell you something powerful. Small improvements consistently made over time lead to massive transformation. Because when you get 1% better every day for a year, you don't become 365% better, you become 37 times better. That's the power of compound growth. That's the magic of consistency. Improving just 1% each day may sound like a small and almost insignificant goal. But it is in this tiny margin of progress where the power of long-term transformation lies. People often overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can achieve in a year. The truth is, greatness doesn't come from grand gestures or instant change. It's the result of consistent, intentional action taken one step at a time, every single day. If you commit to growing by just 1% daily, you may not notice the change tomorrow or even next week, but in a month, 6 months, a year, the compound effect becomes undeniable. Think of it like planting a seed. On the first day, it looks like nothing is happening. You water it, take care of it, and still nothing. But over time, under the surface, roots begin to form. The process is slow, but it's happening. Eventually, a sprout breaks through the soil. Then it grows into a plant, then into a tree. That's the same thing that happens when you improve 1% each day. At first, you won't see the progress. It won't make headlines. No one will clap for you. But something is building within you. Habit is being formed. Discipline is taking root. Confidence is beginning to grow. And if you stay the course, that 1% becomes 37 times better in a year, not just a little better, but exponentially better. This idea of 1% daily growth is grounded in something powerful: consistency. Life doesn't require you to make giant leaps. It requires that you show up every day. You don't have to run a marathon today. Just walk a little further than yesterday. You don't need to become a millionaire this week. Just save a little more, spend a little less, and learn something new. When you break down a massive goal into small, manageable tasks and commit to them every single day, those micro movements become unstoppable momentum. But let's be honest, 1% growth doesn't feel exciting. It's not dramatic. It doesn't give you the instant satisfaction we crave. That's why so many people ignore it. They chase quick fixes, shortcuts, and overnight success stories, not realizing those things are either illusions or unsustainable. Real progress is built quietly, often in solitude, with nobody watching. That's the kind of growth that lasts. That's the kind of improvement that changes lives. You won't always be motivated. That's why discipline matters. And that's where the 1% mindset truly shines. Because you're not waiting for some perfect day to make a massive change. You're not putting pressure on yourself to overhaul your life overnight. You're simply making a choice today to be a little better than you were yesterday. It might mean reading for 5 minutes. It might mean drinking an extra glass of water. It might mean saying no to that negative thought or that bad habit. Small wins repeated daily become your foundation for greatness. Let's look at how this shows up in real life. Imagine someone who wants to get in shape. Instead of trying to lose 30 pounds in a month, they choose to exercise for 20 minutes and eat one healthier meal each day. That 1% might not look like much after a few days, but after a few months, the body changes. The energy increases. The habits solidify. Now it's not just a temporary change, it's a lifestyle. Or consider someone trying to improve their mindset. They start by journaling for 5 minutes a day, or replacing one complaint with one word of gratitude, one small mental shift at a time. Over time, their brain rewires. Their attitude becomes more positive. Challenges feel more manageable, all because they focused on 1% improvement, one thought at a time. It works in relationships, careers, finances, and even creativity. That song you want to write, that book you want to publish, that business you dream of starting, don't wait for the perfect day or the perfect plan. Write one page, create one design, record one idea. That 1% may be the seed of your future success. There's another beauty to this mindset. It reduces overwhelm. When we look at a goal in its entirety, it can seem too big. too far away, too much to handle. But when you shift your perspective and say, all I need to do is get 1% better today, it becomes manageable. It becomes doable. And once it's doable, it becomes real. But don't confuse simplicity with ease. This journey requires patience. The results won't always be visible right away. You'll be tempted to quit, to question if it's working, to fall back into old habits. But if you keep showing up, even when it's hard, you'll start to notice something incredible. You'll begin to trust yourself. You'll realize that progress isn't about motivation, it's about commitment. And that commitment is built in the quiet moments where you choose growth over comfort. Improving 1% every day is a mindset, a way of life. It's not just about doing more, it's about becoming more resilient, more focused, more aligned with your purpose. Every day, you're given the chance to become a little wiser, stronger, kinder, and more capable than the day before. Don't waste that opportunity. Use it. You don't have to change the world in a day. Just change yourself by 1%. And if you do that, the world around you will start to change too. Because small daily improvements are not small at all. They are the steps that lead to greatness. Massive results don't come from a single burst of effort. They don't arrive at your doorstep because of one intense workout, one late night study session, or one inspired speech. Real change, the kind that sticks, the kind that transforms your life, comes from something far less dramatic: consistency. When you make the decision to improve yourself 1% every day, it's not about doing something extraordinary once, it's about doing something intentional every day. That's why consistency beats intensity. Every single time. Most people operate in bursts. They start off strong, full of fire and motivation. They set massive goals, make grand declarations, and throw everything they have at their dreams for a few days or maybe a few weeks. Then reality hits. Life gets busy. Progress feels slow. The excitement fades, and they stop. That's because intensity burns hot and fast, but it's not sustainable. You can sprint for a short time, but no one can sprint forever. Consistency, on the other hand, is quiet. It's not flashy, it's not attention-grabbing, but it's powerful. When you commit to small, manageable steps each day, you create habits. Habits shape your identity. And over time, those habits build momentum that becomes almost impossible to stop. That's the secret most people miss. The difference between the person who succeeds and the one who doesn't isn't always talent or intelligence. It's consistency. Think of brushing your teeth. You don't brush for 2 hours once a week, do you? No. You brush for 2 minutes twice a day. That's not intense, that's consistent. And it keeps your teeth healthy. The same principle applies to your goals. Want to be a great writer? Write every day, even just a few sentences. Want to get stronger? Work out regularly, even if it's short sessions. Want to master a skill? Practice a little each day. It's not about going hard once, it's about showing up again and again. Consistency creates compound growth. When you repeat an action daily, even if it's small, it begins to build. One page becomes a chapter. One chapter becomes a book. One workout becomes a routine. One conversation becomes a stronger relationship. Each small effort stacks on top of the last, like bricks building a wall. That wall doesn't appear overnight, but brick by brick, it rises. And here's the beauty of consistency. It doesn't require motivation. Motivation is a great spark, but it fades. Some days you won't feel like getting up early. You won't feel like going to the gym, studying, or practicing. But if you're consistent, you'll do it anyway. Because it's what you do. It becomes who you are. You don't negotiate with yourself. You follow through, not because you feel like it, but because it's your standard. This is how champions are made. Not by pushing themselves hard for a week and disappearing, but by showing up day after day, especially when it's hard. Consistency is what separates amateurs from professionals. It's the invisible thread that connects all success stories. You see the highlight reels, the trophies, the awards, the headlines, but what you don't see are the countless hours behind the scenes where no one's watching, and yet they kept going. You may think, but I'm not seeing results. And that's the test. Can you stay consistent even when the results aren't obvious? Because the results don't always show up immediately. They show up after weeks or months of invisible progress. And then suddenly one day people say you're an overnight success. But you'll know the truth. It wasn't overnight. It was the ones. One day at a time. Consistency is also a form of self-respect. When you keep the promises you make to yourself, you build self-trust. You show yourself that your goals matter, that you matter every time you follow through, even on the small things. You reinforce your identity as someone who doesn't quit, who doesn't need external applause to keep going. Let's be clear, consistency doesn't mean perfection. You're human. You'll slip, you'll miss a day, you'll fall short. That's okay. What matters is that you get back on track. One missed day doesn't ruin the progress. One bad decision doesn't define you. What defines you is your ability to return, to recommit, to stay in the game. Because while intensity fades in the face of failure, consistency knows how to stand back up. You'll also find that consistency breeds confidence. When you stick with something day in and day out, you get better. So you become more skilled, more knowledgeable, more resilient, and that builds belief in yourself. Confidence doesn't come from hype, it comes from evidence. And the best evidence is consistency. When you look back and see all the days you showed up, even when it was hard, you know you can trust yourself to keep going. So whatever your goal is, whatever you're chasing, don't worry about being the best today. Don't try to do it all in one shot. Just ask yourself, what's the smallest step I can take today to move forward? Then take that step and do it again tomorrow. That's how you win. That's how you grow. Intensity might help you start, but only consistency will take you to the finish line. You don't need to be perfect every day. In fact, perfection is a trap that keeps so many people stuck. They wait for the perfect time to begin, the perfect routine, the perfect mindset, the perfect conditions. But perfection never comes. And while they wait, time keeps moving, opportunities pass, and progress is postponed. That's why the 1% daily improvement mindset is so powerful, because it's not about being flawless. It's about being better than you were yesterday, just a little better. Progress, not perfection. Perfectionism is often disguised as high standards or ambition, but underneath it is usually fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. So people hold back. They don't try unless they can be great from the start. They don't take action unless they're sure of success. But that's not how growth works. You get better by doing, not by waiting. You learn by trying, by falling, by getting up again. And every time you show up and give your best, even if it's not perfect, you win. That's why the idea of 1% improvement each day is so freeing. It removes the pressure. It gives you permission to be a work in progress. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to be flawless. You just need to move forward. Make a slightly better decision. Take a slightly more intentional action. That 1% might not feel like much in the moment, but it adds up. Progress is about direction, not speed. You could be crawling, but if you're headed towards your goal, you're winning. That's what matters. You may have days where everything flows and you feel unstoppable, and you'll have days where you barely manage to show up. That's okay. Not every day will be your best day, but every day can be a building block if you keep going. Think about an athlete training for a championship. They don't perform at their peak every single day. Some workouts are stronger than others. Some days they feel tired, unmotivated, off their game. But they still show up, they still put in the reps, and those imperfect days are often the most important because they prove commitment. They lay the foundation for resilience. That's where real mental strength is built, not in the perfect days, but in the hard ones. The pursuit of perfection also leads to burnout. It creates an all or nothing mindset. You either do everything perfectly or you feel like a failure. That's toxic. It creates cycles of extreme effort followed by collapse. You start a new habit with high energy, miss a day, feel guilty, and quit. But when your focus is progress, not perfection, you give yourself grace. You realize that a missed day doesn't erase your efforts, that a mistake doesn't define your path. You learn to pick yourself up, reset, and continue. The beauty of focusing on progress is that it keeps you in motion. And momentum is everything. When you're in motion, you're learning, you're adjusting, you're gaining experience, you're developing grit. That's far more valuable than trying to be perfect and getting stuck in hesitation. One of the greatest shifts you can make in your mindset is to see mistakes as feedback, not failure. When something doesn't work out, instead of beating yourself up, ask, what did I learn? How can I adjust? That attitude keeps you growing. It keeps you evolving. And over time, That adaptability becomes your superpower. Because life will throw you challenges. Nothing will ever go exactly according to plan. If perfection is your standard, you'll always feel behind. But if progress is your goal, you'll find power in every step, no matter how small. There's also a deep sense of fulfillment that comes from measurable growth. When you look back and realize you've been steadily improving, even if it was slow, it fills you with confidence. You see the effort you've made, you feel proud, and that pride becomes motivation. You realize that you don't need to be perfect to succeed, you just need to be persistent. This mindset also makes goals more achievable. When you aim for perfection, the goal can feel overwhelming, so big that you don't know where to start. But when you break it down and ask, what's one thing I can do today to move forward, you take control. You shift your focus to the present. That's where progress lives, not in someday, not in perfection, in right now. Imagine how your life would change if you committed to progress daily. Imagine the skills you'd develop, the habits you'd build, the confidence you'd gain. Imagine looking back a year from now and seeing how far you've come. Not because you were perfect, but because you were consistent. You improved a little each day. You gave yourself grace. You didn't quit when it got hard. That's what creates transformation. So let go of the need to be perfect. Let go of the pressure to have it all together. Replace it with a new standard. Just be better than yesterday. That's enough. That's powerful. That's sustainable. Progress is possible for everyone. Perfection is not. And when you commit to progress, you make room for learning, growth, and real success. You are a work in progress, and that is something to celebrate. Keep going, 1% better every day. You are not in competition with anyone else. The only person you need to be better than is the person you were yesterday. This simple yet powerful truth can reshape how you view your goals, your growth, and your life. In a world driven by social media, external validation, and constant comparison, it's easy to feel like you're behind, like everyone else is doing better, achieving more, living the life you're still dreaming about. But real growth, authentic, lasting growth, doesn't come from chasing others. It comes from competing with yourself. When you adopt the mindset of daily self-improvement, your focus shifts from what others are doing to what you are doing. You stop worrying about who's ahead or who seems to be winning, and you start paying attention to your own journey. You ask better questions. Did I grow today? Did I try harder than yesterday? Did I make better choices than I did last week? These are the questions that matter. These are the questions that keep you grounded in your own progress. The danger of comparing yourself to others is that you're only seeing their highlight reel. You see their success, their vacations, their wins, but not their failures, fears, or sacrifices. You compare their best moments to your behind the scenes. That's not fair. It's not accurate, and it's not helpful. But when you measure against yourself, you're being honest. You know what you've been through. You know your starting point. You know how hard you've worked and how far you've come. When you compete with your past self, you're focusing on progress, not perfection. You realize that it's okay to not have it all figured out, because what matters is that you're moving forward. Maybe last month you were full of doubt, and today you're taking bold steps. That's growth. Maybe last week you procrastinated, but today you took action. That's improvement. Maybe yesterday you were stuck in fear, and today you faced it. That's success. These are the victories that matter, and they come when your only competition is the person in the mirror. This mindset also builds self-awareness. You start noticing your habits, your thoughts, your behaviors. You start becoming intentional. You begin asking, what can I do better today? That question puts you in control. You're no longer at the mercy of comparison, jealousy, or distraction. You're focused on your own lane. And when you stay in your lane, you move faster and with more clarity. Competing with yourself also creates a sense of peace. You're not always looking over your shoulder. You're not stressed about keeping up. You're not wasting energy trying to meet someone else's standard. You have your own standard, and that gives you freedom. Freedom to grow at your pace. Freedom to fail and learn, freedom to rise again. When you stop competing with others, you find the mental space to improve, reflect, and evolve. Think about athletes who train not to beat others, but to beat their personal best. They track their progress. They celebrate small improvements. They know that every second faster, every inch further, every rep stronger means they're evolving. And that matters more than any medal or title. Because success isn't always about being the best in the world, it's about being the best version of yourself. This principle applies to every area of life. In your career, focus on growing your skills, deepening your knowledge, and being more effective than you were last year. In your relationships, focus on being more present, more understanding, more compassionate than you were before. In your health, aim to be stronger, more disciplined, and more energized than you were last week. This is real progress, and it's sustainable because it's rooted in self-growth, not external validation. Another powerful benefit of self-competition is that it helps you build confidence. Every time you beat your own record, overcome an old habit, or take on a new challenge, you build evidence that you're capable of more. Confidence doesn't come from being better than others. It comes from being better than your past self. That's where belief is born. You start to trust yourself. You start to expect more from yourself. And you begin to realize that you're capable of things you once thought were impossible. It also removes excuses. When you stop blaming others or focusing on their success, you take full responsibility for your growth. You stop saying, they had more help or they're lucky, and start saying, what can I do today to move forward? That's when things start to change. That's when you take ownership. And ownership is power. You don't have to grow fast, you just have to grow consistently. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to improve. Each day, aim to be a little stronger, a little wiser, a little more focused. And when you do that day after day, you'll be amazed at who you become. You'll look back and realize that you didn't need to compete with anyone else. You just needed to believe in your own journey. So don't worry about who's ahead or what others are doing. Your life is not a race against them. It's a mission to evolve into the person you were meant to be. Your only competition is your yesterday. Beat that version of you every day and success will take care of itself. Keep showing up, keep pushing, keep growing. And remember, your best self is always one step ahead, waiting for you to catch up. Tiny decisions often go unnoticed. They don't come with applause or dramatic turning points. They slip into your day almost silently. A choice between hitting snooze or getting up, between scrolling or reading, between reacting with frustration or responding with patience. At first glance, these choices seem insignificant. But over time, these small decisions shape your life in ways you can't imagine. It's in these quiet moments that your future is being built. The difference between who you are now and who you want to become lies in the consistency of your daily choices. That's why discipline in the small things matters more than we often realize. We tend to focus on the big moments, the big presentations, the final exams, the major events, and we tell ourselves that those are the turning points. But the truth is, those moments only reveal the work you've done in silence. Success isn't made in the spotlight. It's made in the daily grind. It's created when no one is watching, when there's no reward, and when motivation is nowhere to be found. That's where discipline is formed. That's where character is built. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. It's saying yes to your goals and no to your excuses. It's choosing growth over comfort, action over procrastination, and consistency over chaos. You don't need to be perfect every day. You don't need to have massive breakthroughs every week. You just need to make the small decisions that move you forward, day after day. That's where real transformation begins. It could be something as simple as choosing water instead of soda. That single choice might not change your life today, but when repeated over weeks and months, it impacts your energy, your health, your mindset. It could be deciding to read 10 pages of a book instead of watching a show. That decision won't make headlines, but over time, it builds knowledge, vocabulary, confidence, and mental clarity. One more rep at the gym. One more hour of focus. One more kind word spoken. These are not small things. These are the bricks that build your future. People often talk about habits, but they forget that every habit starts as a choice. And every day you are reinforcing who you are through your choices. Are you choosing the path that leads to growth? Or are you choosing the one that leads to regret? It's never the one big decision that defines your destiny. It's the dozens of tiny ones you make before breakfast. It's whether you get up and face your responsibilities or give in to laziness. Whether you stay disciplined with your priorities or let distractions steal your day. The most successful people you admire didn't become great by accident. They built their greatness on a foundation of small, repeated disciplines. They were the ones who made sacrifices when it wasn't convenient. They got up early when they could have slept in. They prepared when others were winging it. They said no to distractions when everyone else was saying yes. And over time, those little moments added up. That's how the best are made, not by luck, not by talent alone, but by intentional choices again and again. There's a saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. If you cut corners in the small things, it becomes easier to cut corners in the big ones. If you let yourself off the hook with minor commitments, you train your brain that your word doesn't matter. But when you stay disciplined in the small things, when you honor your promises to yourself, you build trust, momentum, and integrity. You become someone you can rely on, and that kind of self-respect is priceless. It's easy to underestimate the impact of the little things. That's why people give up on their goals. They don't see instant results. They go to the gym for a week, don't lose weight and quit. They save money for a month, don't see major growth and spend it again. They write a few pages, get frustrated, and stop. But what they don't realize is that the small efforts are compounding just beneath the surface. You won't see the fruit right away, but the roots are growing. The foundation is forming, and if you stay the course, the results will come. Discipline also gives you freedom. It might seem like a paradox, but it's true. When you're disciplined with your time, you have more of it. When you're disciplined with your money, you experience less stress. When you're disciplined with your thoughts and actions, you gain more control over your emotions and outcomes. Discipline is not a restriction. It's the doorway to everything you truly want. In the end, it's not about making massive changes overnight. It's about making the right small decisions consistently. It's about choosing the things that align with your highest goals, even when it's hard. It's about mastering the little moments, because those moments define your path. Every decision is a vote for the person you want to become. And when you cast those votes every day through action, effort, and discipline, you eventually become that person. So the next time you're faced with a small choice, whether to push through or give up, whether to speak life or stay silent, whether to stick to the plan or take the easy way out, remember this. Those choices matter. They may not seem like much now, but they're shaping your story. Choose wisely. Choose intentionally. And most importantly, choose with the belief that every small act of discipline is bringing you closer to the life you were meant to live. Small doesn't mean insignificant. Small means strategic. It's the little hinges that swing the big doors. So keep showing up, keep making the small, right choices. Your future self will thank you. Greatness is often misunderstood. People think it's born in big moments, on stages, in stadiums, in front of crowds, under bright lights. But the truth is, greatness is built long before anyone sees it. It's formed in the shadows, in the quiet hours when no one is watching. It's created in early mornings when the world is still asleep, in late nights when everyone else has called it a day. Greatness doesn't start with applause. It starts in silence. It starts with decisions made in solitude, actions taken when there's no audience, no validation, and no immediate reward. Success doesn't arrive with a bang. It sneaks in through discipline. It creeps in through consistency. The people we admire, the leaders, the legends, the trailblazers, they weren't born different. They just learned the power of building in silence. While others talked, they worked. While others waited, they acted. While others needed praise to keep going, they kept grinding when nobody cared. When you commit to improving yourself just 1% every day, you're building your life quietly, but powerfully. You might not see the results right away. In fact, some days will feel like nothing's changing, but something is happening beneath the surface. You're getting stronger, you're building resilience, you're sharpening your mind. And over time, that quiet discipline turns into undeniable transformation. The reason why building in silence is so powerful is because it keeps you focused. When you're not doing it for likes, for attention, or for external approval, your motivation becomes internal. You're driven by your purpose, not by praise. That's how you build something real. That's how you create something that lasts. Because when you're motivated by noise, your commitment fades when the noise disappears. But when you're driven by purpose, you keep going. Regardless of whether anyone's clapping for you, there's something sacred about working in silence. It teaches you patience. It teaches you humility. It teaches you that results don't come instantly. They come from showing up again and again. It teaches you to be loyal to your future self, to make sacrifices now for the version of you that's waiting ahead. Think about an artist painting in a small studio with no audience, a writer typing in a quiet room late at night, an athlete training alone before the sun rises. There's no spotlight. There's no performance, but that's where mastery begins. That's where champions are made, not on the stage, but in the preparation that no one sees. When you grow in silence, you also develop something rare in today's world: authenticity. You're not performing for anyone. You're not doing things for clout. You're doing the work because it matters to you. You're becoming who you're meant to be, not who the world tells you to be. And that authenticity creates confidence because you know the work you've put in, you know the effort, the time, the setbacks you've overcome, and no one can take that away from you. You also become more mentally tough. Silence trains your mind to stay the course. It teaches you to stay committed without constant validation. It forces you to rely on your own inner strength. And when you develop that kind of mental toughness, you become unstoppable. You stop quitting when it gets hard. You stop chasing short-term comfort. You start embracing the grind, knowing that it's all part of the process. In silence, you also become more grateful because every small step feels like a win. You begin to appreciate the process, not just the outcome. You learn to value growth over recognition. And that shift in mindset is powerful. It removes pressure and creates peace. You don't need to prove yourself to the world every day. You just need to keep becoming the best version of yourself quietly and consistently. One of the most dangerous things people do is wait for the world to notice them before they start. They wait for the promotion, the platform, the validation, but you don't need anyone's permission to become great. You don't need an audience to work hard. You don't need applause to grow. You just need a reason, a strong enough reason to wake up and take action. And once you have that, silence becomes your strength, not your weakness. The truth is, most of your growth will happen behind closed doors. The world will only see the results, not the struggle. They'll see the finished product, not the late nights and early mornings. They'll see the success, but not the sacrifices. And that's okay, because greatness doesn't need to be loud to be real. Some of the most powerful growth happens when no one's looking. So embrace the silence, learn to love the process. Be proud of the small wins, the daily efforts, the invisible victories, because those are the things that matter. Those are the things that build a life of meaning, purpose, and success. And when your time comes, when the lights turn on and the world finally sees what you've built, they'll think you came out of nowhere, but you'll know the truth. You didn't arrive by accident. You arrived by effort, quiet, consistent, relentless effort. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You just need to keep showing up 1% better every single day, in silence, in discipline, in purpose. That's how greatness is born. That's how your legacy is built.